All righty, folks. First, can you hear me? Thumbs up. Thank you. I remember the time that I did a session and it was muted. That was no fun. So this is day 2 of the boot camp. We are going to review day 1, kind of picking markets. Some of you had action items. I want to give that kind of 15 minutes follow up, see if anybody had questions about that. Then we're going to twist. We're going to pivot into the buy box, what it is, how to use it, what it allows you to do. If we have time, we will get into the spreadsheet. I'm certain we'll at least hit the spreadsheet at the closing. I do want to highlight that I think day 3 for us, just to put it out there, kind of on your radar, will be Sunday, October 18th. Or I'm sorry, Sunday, October 8th. October 8th. So about 2 weeks from today, because I want to give you 2 weeks to hopefully get in your buy box, start building your spreadsheet. So then when we come back together on the 8th, I'll be able to look at your spreadsheets. Second, if you do need a refresher on the buy box, all of you have access to a 2-hour deep dive on the buy box. This was done about 9 months ago. And I think I had 4 or 5 students come on that video and share their buy boxes. And you will see the spreadsheet is your creation. I think there are certain factors that we have to have in there. But it really is not about copying mine. It's about making it yours. Hopefully that makes sense. And we'll do a lot more on that in about 2 weeks. So October 8th, I will send out a Zoom link after this is over. So as we get started, I do want to go back to day 1. If you have questions or thoughts or feedback, or you want to tell me about your homework assignment from day 1, picking a market, go ahead and just raise your hand with the little icon, and we'll take a few questions or comments or anything. So does anybody have a question about day 1, finding your market? All right. Nobody raised their hand, so we will just move on. So now, buy box. Hopefully by now, because you've all heard me say this before, but just for the folks that watch this on replay, I believe the buy box is, I don't know, the secret to unlocking becoming a good real estate investor. I believe most real estate investors getting started are inundated with options, with data, with markets, and it becomes very quickly overwhelming. And best case, you stand still. In worst case, you go backwards. So what I have unlocked and what has unlocked for me and now thousands of people is we are going to treat the buy box like we would, learning Spanish or French or Mandarin, learning an instrument or playing golf. It is going to be the thing that once we set, it is all we look at for 90 days. And when I say all we look at, I mean that. It means you get permission to ignore everything else. If it doesn't show up in your buy box search, it might as well not exist, at least for the next 90 days. We have to get repetition. We have to get discipline. We have to quickly identify what is changing about our buy box. And to be very clear, my buy box in Fresno, California, which I think all of you have heard, but I'll say it again, I looked at for 3 years before I went anywhere else. I looked at 93703, single family homes, 3 or 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1 story. I think it was 1,250 to 1,750 square feet. If it wasn't in that, and oh, by the way, on market, it didn't exist to me. It didn't exist. Now, when you have your buy box, it will also allow you to start tracking. For me, I found value in having Realtor. I used Realtor.com. Feel free to use whatever app you would like. Taking the listings the first day, right? There was 23 listings. And I went to my spreadsheet. Address, beds, bath, price, right? I just filled it out manually. And then if I went back the next day, I started, what changed? What came off? What came on? What had a price drop? What had a price raise? What came back on the market? And then when you're in the buy box and you're in my spreadsheet, you will see there are other factors, right? What's the down payment? What's the mortgage payment? Property taxes, property management, reserves, right? We can get into those variables after we get some discipline tracking what's going on in our spreadsheet. So I'd love to talk to you guys about what your buy box is. I would love for you to ask questions. Again, raise your hands. This is kind of an anchor point, so hopefully there's lots of questions. If you want to share what your buy box is, great. If you have questions about, hey, my buy box is this or that, I don't know. If we have time, we'll get to the spreadsheet, but hopefully there are plenty of questions. And I see Catherine has her hand up. So Catherine, go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll get started.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everybody. So my husband and I were just talking about this, and he's on a different screen because he's in a different city right now. He's working.
Okay.
He's Rod, is his screen name.
Okay.
So we were just talking about this. We've started a buy box in 89135, which is Las Vegas.
Okay.
We just kind of picked that because we've lived in Las Vegas, and that seemed to me a pretty reasonable zip code based on different variables.
Okay.
So are you saying that we don't, to start on the buy box, we don't have to put in like down payment and make ready and all that? We don't have to take stabs at that. We just have to put in what's on the market. We have to like say 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-story, square footage, price range. And that's all we have to pick?
In the beginning, for most of us, that is going to be a huge step forward. But I would tell you also add like a notes field.
Okay.
Like, what do you see? Turnkey. Just add what you see, right? Ugly paint, corner lot. Add whatever you are seeing in the listing. I would probably also add date columns. That's something that's not in the template, is date columns, like the date you found it. Because as you go through the next 90 days, you're going to start to see a pulse for that zip code. At some point, I do want you to start taking stabs. Like, you have experience in Vegas. You have experience in real estate, as I remember from day one. You might want to take stabs right away, because ultimately the goal of this buy box / spreadsheet is for you to answer the question, what is an average deal in, I forgot the zip code already, 89135 or whatever it was.
Correct.
That's where we have to get. I want you to crawl, walk, run. You have experience in Vegas. You have experience in real estate. I would say you're crawling already. So you might want to take a stab at, like, I'm not sure what rents are. I need to identify some property managers, or I need to check Rentometer, or I need to find other investors. So the spreadsheet should also magnify what you don't know, or what you think you know, but you want to verify.
Well, so that was my secondary question, which is there are actually a couple of zip codes that I was thinking of. So how do you pick? I know we should focus on one at a time for 90 days or what have you.
So you can pick two. So my goal, or what I ask of you, is whatever you set is your buy box. Two things. Once it is set, it's set. Second, the goal of your criteria is somewhere between 20 and 40 active listings. So if you put in 89, whatever it was, 135, and it only showed 17 listings, for example, well, great. Feel free to add another zip code.
So between 20 and 40, you said?
20 and 40, because that, for most people, because most people that follow what I talk about were me, have full-time jobs, have families. They only have 20 minutes a day. So what I found valuable is I can go through 20 or 40, especially after I'm into this for a week or 10 days. I can go through it rather quickly. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Okay, so just to recap. So
Sure.
For example, let's say I do pick 2 zip codes and I end up with 40 listings.
Okay.
And for the beginning, I'm just going to put in 3-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever. And I'm not going to focus yet on make ready costs or anything like that. I'm just going to put listings in there because it's been 2.5 years since we've been in Vegas. So I really want to refamiliarize myself.
Yes.
And then in a
Yes.
little while, we will start but we will put in things like the date we found them, what do we see, notes,
Yes.
that kind of thing. And then we will graduate to those other variables like make ready costs and so forth.
Exactly. So if this is your first time leveraging the buy box, I don't want you looking at your criteria and then getting lost in my spreadsheet, right? Because if you don't know make readies and property management fees and rent, you might get stuck at day 3. I don't want that. Just the activity of building the habit of the daily discipline, right? Okay. Day 7, day 14, it's going to start to feel natural. And you'll be like, oh, it's Wednesday. I got to look at my buy box. Eventually, probably day 14, maybe day 20, you're going to be like, okay, I got to go deeper. You know what? I don't know what rents are in your example for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Let me call 2 property managers. Or I saw a lease. Let me call the number and ask what it is. Or let me go to a rentometer. Or I don't know make ready, right? I see this one that I like that's really cheap, but it's got an ugly kitchen. Well, I got to figure out what that is. So yeah, in the beginning, I'm trying to build the habit of looking and tracking. Then we get to refinement.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Very, very cool. All right, we got a question from Karen. Again, feel free to raise your hand, guys. This is for you. Lots of questions should be asked. Hi, Karen.
Hey, Mike. How are you today?
I am wonderful. I'm feeling myself after a week.
You're looking it too. Look good.
I feel much better.
Awesome. And I think you actually, listening to the previous question, you kind of answered what I was looking for. Because if we do have a zip code and we come up with like 60 listings,
60?
Yes.
60?
Yes. Say we put in a zip code, we came up with like 60 listings. Should we just focus on the first 20 to 40? Or
no.
Okay.
No, refine the list.
Okay.
Refine the list. So when I went to Fresno, let me see if I get my browser open. We have time, so let me see if I make this work. One sec. Hopefully this works. Okay, so far so good. Realtor.com. Okay, so I'll be back in 1 minute. Let me go back here. Where are you? Okay, so let me show you what I'm going to try to circa 2001 Mike Zuber here for now. So let me share my screen. So Karen, can you see this?
I can. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So again, remember, I'm a tech worker, Bay Area. I just wasted a year in the Silicon Valley because nothing cash flows. Olivia and I pull out a map. Fresno, California is the first city with more than 100,000 people that seems to cash flow. I know nothing about Fresno, but I know how to learn, right? Because I spent a year here. So I type in Fresno, California. There are 1,310 homes available. Okay.
Right.
So what I did is, again, I spent about 30 days networking, talking to other investors, agents, and I asked everybody, where should I invest and where I shouldn't? This is kind of day one stuff day one that we did together about the market. Ultimately, everybody said the Mayfair, or not everybody. Most people said the Mayfair district. Okay, great. So the Mayfair district. Oh, well, today, 35 homes. Today, I would just lock this in. Right. Circa 2001 or 2, when I did this, it had 87 homes or something. It was still too big, like your example, 60. Mm-hmm. So then what I did is I went and said houses only. Right. And then houses only came with 31, right? Just refinement. And again, back circa 2002, that was still more than 40. So then what I had to do is I had to come in and say 3 and above. And I ended up saying, I think I said 2 and above bathrooms. Right. So again, in this case, there's only 14 because we all know there's no inventory out there. So in today's world, I would just do 93703. Circa 2002, I had to refine the list to get to sub 40. Makes sense? And then I would just save the search. And then that's all I would look at. And for me, I looked at that for almost 3 full years. That was the only thing I looked at. If it didn't exist in that list, and again, everything I bought was out of the MLS. I didn't do mailers. I didn't have a network. The one thing I would do different, and I hope all of you do, is once you lock this in, tell everybody, because you never know where an off-market deal might come to you. Everybody should know your buy box. There should never be a guess. I would tell everybody you speak with. In fact, if I was reaching out to agents or property managers, I would tell them, oh, by the way, I'm an active investor and this is what I'm looking for, blah, 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 whatever that is.
Great. And just to follow up, so because you gave me a little bit of homework last week, I did go on Facebook to the Greenville, North Carolina investors, page.
Nice.
And just put out there looking for an investor friendly agent. I got like 5 or 6 recommendations. So followed up with 3 of them, or at least 2.
Okay.
So next is to work on just to talk to some of those folks who are investors in that area. And I do know one already. Yeah. So
nice. And then Karen, again, this is all a building block. So something I would do in your next conversations is I would lead with, or, maybe you're calling about a listing, but I would lead with what you're looking for.
Right.
Because again, the agent on the other line is trying to size you up. Right. Is this person going to waste my time? If you come into that conversation with a buy box, and they may not use that term, right? What you're looking for, they're going to instantly put you to the top of the list.
Right. Yeah. I was pretty honest, like still just starting to look, don't have an exact time frame for purchasing, just being honest. Yeah.
No, exactly. Then if you add on to that, this is what I'm looking for, again, just takes you right up there. Perfect.
Right. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Julio.
All right, Mike, I'm wondering about single family versus multifamily.
Sure.
Somebody just getting in, thinking seriously about house hacking, whether I'm living in an ADU or living in a place, renting that out, or doing a duplex, triplex, quad. Is there any reason not to want to go for that as opposed to single family?
No, if you are comfortable doing multifamily, realize that the quantity is a lot less. So your criteria might be more. So I have no idea what this will be. So let me start sharing again. Let's just do it for Fresno. I used to know these numbers, but I'm trying to learn Vegas now. So let's go in here and let's say multifamily, not homes. We got to get rid of that. Oh, we got to get rid of this. So there's only 2 multifamilies in my zip code of Mayfair. So again, that would be too small, right? So there's 33 multifamilies. And again, multifamily in the MLS, typically speaking, 4 units and below. So residential. There may be a sneaky 5-plex in here or whatnot. But I'm fine with your search being multifamily. I would not mix them. I would not put in a criteria that said single family homes and multifamily, because the cost structure, the expenses, the insurance, there's a lot of variables there. But I am perfectly happy with a buy box that says small multifamily, but just realize your criteria has to probably be bigger.
I got you. So basically, if there's just not enough, just go for single family and leave it at that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because absolutely. If there's like 8 properties in your entire market, again, what I'm trying to teach when this boot camp and everything I do is the skill of real estate investing. So if there's simply not enough quantity to be meaningful, you're not going to learn, right? If there's only 5 or 8 or whatever, I would strongly suggest doing single family. But I think in most markets, I don't know, I shouldn't say most because I don't know. In many markets, like Fresno, 33, if I wanted to do that, I could. Now that's going to be Fresno's a gigantic city. So there's going to be, some areas you don't want to go, but you could. But I think single family is easier.
And one follow-up, what do you think it'd be worth building if you had maybe bought a house and then built something else? Do you think that's just getting too complicated or it would cost too much?
So a couple of thoughts. I would not worry about that in the first 90 days.
Okay.
Right. We're trying to learn the skill of real estate investing. Because of our conversation, this boot camp's conversation at day 0, I am bringing on that ADU guy. Probably week 5 is how it's feeling in the agenda right now. And we can ask all of those questions. Because I think if you are in a high cost state that is ADU friendly, that might be one of the game changers for us. But I would not want you to start there. Too many variables, too many risks, too many unknowns. You're going to get stuck going nowhere.
I got
Mike.
you. All right, appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
Of course, Julio. All right, Jason, you're up next, guys. Folks, please raise your hand if you have questions. This is important. This is why you paid the big bucks, was understanding what a buy box is, isn't, and getting started. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Mike. Quick question. So in your you're doing your initial parameters. I think you were like walking it down and started like zip code, then you went to house type, then you went to bedrooms versus bathrooms. Should you, let's say you do the zip code and it goes down to like 30 something, should
Okay.
you focus on house type, or is it okay if it's like a condo versus single family townhouse?
No, if you're like, I think Fresno for me this time was 33 just on zip code. Done.
Mhm.
I'm locked in. I'm
Okay.
done. Yeah.
And is that just for the purposes of learning the skill, or would you actually be interested in investing across whatever had a certain cash flow?
In the beginning, I would not know the difference, right? So I would try to learn them all. They are different. I own some of all of them. Single family is very different than townhomes, HOAs, and all of those things. I
Mhm.
personally, unless it's a steal, like I own one rental that is in an HOA, but the guy basically gave me the property. I don't buy them. They change all the. It's like a mortgage that only goes up.
Yeah.
I mean, I the HOA's doubled in the 3 or 4 years that I've owned it.
Mhm.
But again, in the beginning, it's about building the skill, the repetition. 33 gives me that opportunity. There is a clear difference now, having done this for 20 years, between townhomes, HOAs, and single families.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the other question is, let's say in your buy box, you see a home that is like a luxury home and you're just like, I know I'm not going to try to buy luxury. Should you filter that out, or should you, for the sake of the exercise, keep it in there?
Keep it in. Keep it in. It's all value at this point. If it meets your 20 to 40 active listings, it's all value.
Wow.
Now in the comment section, you may make a note. Oh, kind of expensive, kind of an oddball. But I bet you over time, you will identify that part of town, I don't know, historic districts, old craftsmen, I don't know what they'll be, but it's all data. If it's in your criteria, don't exclude. It's all, more data is better, assuming the 20 to 40 criteria.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Thank you.
Of course. Karen C, because we have two Karens. I made the mistake last time. Karen Casey.
Good morning. So my question is, I looked at the Sacramento area this week, and then I asked a few people about it. I did contact Matt. He gave me a referral. It was that night I got on the wait list, but by the time I got there, I would have actually been an hour and 15 minutes late. So that wasn't the impression I wanted to make. So I did not go, but I did sign myself up for something on October 4th. So I'll go to that. And I'll reach out again and see if there's another one he thinks I should go to. But my question is, so like Sacramento is a huge area. I did ask around. I want to stay out of the gangbanger areas. And there are quite a few here.
Sure.
So the places that most people want to live, the houses are like 600,000, maybe mid 500,000s and up.
Okay.
So I know the last person asked about HOAs and doing condos. So should I go ahead and consider that, or should I look a little bit further out?
Well, there's two things I would do about Sacramento. I think Sacramento is a lot like Fresno. And again, I'm saying that as someone who's never looked at Sacramento, at least in detail. I suspect there's a part of Sacramento where the homes are older. We're talking 1990 to 2000 that are sub 500 grand, that are very much rental areas and not gangbangers. They have to exist. There is a rental areas in Sacramento. We haven't found, what I'm hearing is we haven't found it yet.
Yes, I have not found it. I'm looking.
It's there. You're going to, back to kind of day one. So you've got your market. You have to network. Like you're still, like when I did my story, Fresno, all of that, I did spend 30 days asking everybody where to go. And it wasn't until I talked with at least 20 folks that I started to narrow in on the Mayfair district. And again, the Mayfair district is one of the oldest parts of town. It wasn't where new construction was going, right? New construction in Fresno is north of town. This is kind of like east of, or maybe west of downtown. There is a spot in Sacramento. You just have to find it. I guarantee you it's there.
I will keep looking.
Nice job. Yeah. So I would guess, given the price points, I would guess they're like 350 to 480 is where I'd probably be looking. And again, I would probably look, if I was going to start looking Sacramento, this is completely off the top of my head. I would go in and look for 1990 build or newer. And I would probably go sub 600 grand. Single family homes. Because I have no idea. Actually, you know what? Let's just do that together. Let's just see if I'm right. All right. So hopefully you can see that. And again, I've never done this before, so this is a little bit of risk. I'm not even sure I could. There we go. Sacramento. Oh. Sacramento, California. Not multifamily. Let's do houses. Let's do, usually it's in here. There's a search. I always do this on my phone. Here it is. Home age. So what would that be? Let's say 30 years. And then what I would probably do, because again, right now we're just in investigation mode.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably sort by lowest price. And then again, I would just start going through this list, trying to figure out what zip codes, started. And again, I don't know how many are there. 700. You're going to be going through a lot. Maybe you tweak this a little bit. Oh, I didn't put in a price. So let's put in a price. Let's say, can I type a number in here? Let's say max 500. No matching. What did I do wrong? Oh, 500 grand. Stupid. Sorry. I thought it took the zeros and it didn't. All right. Now, actually, let's do highest. This is all just part of the investigation. So I might check out this area. This is kind of the old houses. This one's probably been remodeled. I don't know I don't know anything about Sacramento. This looks good. I don't know this area, 95829. That's kind of the bread and butter stuff. This is all part of the homework. And then you could ask people, what do you think of 95829? And ask lots of people. 95821. Again, these are just all pictures. This is just all part of the hunt. This is the hunt for the buy box. This is what I'd be doing.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I'd be doing. And again, I'm trying to remind myself of 2002. I probably did something just like this for 20 hours combined. Because I didn't know anything about Sacramento more than I drove through Sacramento one time as a teenager.
I never drive through Sacramento. I stay on the 50. If it's not right off the 50, I don't get off.
Well, there you go. So you're just like me. It's like, I don't know this town. So you've got to do some homework, figure out where the older homes are. There is a market.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you just have a little bit of homework to do. And it's fun. It should be like you're digging for gold and like you're getting refined. And then, you get a list and you're like, oh, ignore this because this is where the gangbangers are. Okay, great. Check that off. But what about these other ones? And this is just part of the hunt, finding the buy box.
All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Alex, how you doing? I think I can unmute you if you'd like. Oh, there you go.
There you go. Okay. Hey, Mike, thank you. Thanks, Adam, again. A quick shout out to Adam. He's been putting this Discord thing that's been helping me out as well.
Yeah, I got to talk to Adam. I got to figure out what a Discord is. I've never used it. So, Adam, you and I know I owe you a phone call. I don't see you, but I know you're here, or I think you're here. Thank you, Adam. Sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
No, it's quite all right. Mike, so I'm a realtor in California. I deal with probate. Sometimes I get an opportunity, and I'm trying to avoid mistakes or that shiny object approach.
Mm-hmm.
So my buy box is Downey, California. I just got a listing for another property in a different city. Now I feel like I have to do another buy box for that opportunity. How do you decide, or how do you determine?
Hard and fast rules. I am very disciplined. In the first 90 days, Alex, you get one buy box. A buy box is permission to focus, but most importantly, permission to ignore. You are trying to learn the skill. You can't learn to play golf while you're practicing basketball. You have to practice golf. And for me, the buy box is that, at least for the first 90 days. Once you have the skill, like today, I have multiple buy boxes in Fresno, California. It's not a secret. And I'm on the cusp of adding Vegas. I can do that because I got the skill and I could differentiate. But I'm trying to hold this group accountable to just one for 90 days.
Okay. Because like I said, I see an opportunity, and I don't know if I should just dive into it, change my buy box at this moment since we just started. But then I have to put the property in the market. I have to decide. It's a full rehab.
Sure.
I don't know if I should buy or flip or team up or do a joint venture with someone. And
it's back to my earlier comment. For the first 90 days, lots of new investors, they get inundated with options, and you go nowhere or you go backwards. I'm trying to help you prevent that.
Okay. Got it.
Now, if you want to switch buy boxes because we haven't got into this, that's on you.
Right.
But you get one.
Okay. Sounds
Is that
good.
Okay?
That sounds good. And
I don't want to disappoint you.
No. I know I sound disappointed because I have to stay focused, and that's why I'm here. Simple.
I will do my best.
Thank you.
One buy box.
One quick question: are we going to be discussing the buy box information as when we're inputting details today, or is that going to be next week?
Depends on how many questions go. We will certainly touch on it at the end because I want to give you how to use it for the next 2 weeks. How deep we get into it depends on all the questions, but we will touch on it at the very end because I want to give you 2 weeks to play with it.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Hey, Gabriel, how are you?
How you doing, Mike? I'm pretty good. Yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I feel better. I feel the first day in a week, I feel like myself.
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. But real quick, Alex, I'm like 90 days into the buy box, and trust me, I felt exactly like you feel today. I'm telling you, you get anxious and you want to just jump at everything that you can possibly do. And you have the skill of realtor. I have the skill of building. And so it's like, oh, I can remodel this, really quick. But no, Mike said no. I gotta stick to my guns. But let me tell you, it's well worth the wait. I'm still, itching to get something, but it's still, I can see I can feel the knowledge just growing in my brain. I don't know how to describe that, but I guess that's the only way I can.
I'm trying to turn on I call it light bulb moments. Back when I ran sales teams and I had go-to-market strategy, right? I'm one of the few people on the planet that took 3 products from ideas to $100 million. That was my job the last decade. And all I did was try to produce light bulb moments. What I'm trying to give you, Gabriel, Alex, everybody else on this call, and frankly, everybody that follows me, is I'm trying to help you see that real estate investing is a skill. It's focus and daily discipline. I know it's monotonous. I know it's boring. I know like you're missing things, but at some point, this freaking light bulb goes off over your head and you're like, I get it now. I see what I'm supposed to see. So thank you for that, Gabriel. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's like a dimmer of a light bulb.
Flickering. It's flickering.
It's coming on. It's not there yet. So Alex, just just keep it going, buddy. I mean, I'm sure we'll all be there. But yeah, so my question is more like, okay, I've been doing this for about 90 days or so on my buy box. Yep. And that was part of my first question last week that, hey, I've been all the questions everybody was asking, and your advice was try to stay above 100,000 people. Mine, I'm in Huntsville, Texas. I'm right under 50,000 people. So I was thinking I was being held back. And then, so my buy box, my buy box started, under 40 houses, was single family, 3-1, under $230,000. And there's 2 zip codes in Huntsville. So it was in that 2 zip code Huntsville section, and then I started putting information on there. I got to learn your B quality less than 10,000. I changed the numbers. I don't know if that's okay or not.
Absolutely. It's your spreadsheet.
I mean, I could do that. I could do the classifications of how much money I need to spend. That to me comes super duper easy. So like B is less than 10,000, A is less than 3,000, C is more than 10,000. So I did
Love
that.
it.
I put some
Love
notes
it.
on there.
Yep.
This one's pending. I do a little bit more research, like this one may flood, may not flood.
Oh, that's important.
So
Yep.
things like that. This one's been on the market for, then what I add on my spreadsheet every single day, or every single second day or third day that I've been, depending, is like,
Yeah.
okay, this one's been on the market for 62 days and it's pending. Now it's been on the market for 63 days and it's pending. Now, like every column I add is a day.
Okay.
This one went off the market. Okay, this one just came on. Then I started learning. It's like, okay, well, I'm about, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
So far,
But
so
I'm
good.
about it, my market according to this criteria, and then it goes back to the gentleman that asked the question previous, should you stick with what you have? But what I didn't know that then. But what I did was I downsized it. I was like, okay, I know that if I go anything above 175,000, it's going to give me, if I'm lucky, 2% return yield. So then I reduced my buy box. It shrunk it to, it's still up between the 20 and 40, but closer to the 20 range at some points. So then now it's like, okay, at least I'm going to try to gauge it to where I can get the 4 to 5% range. And that was 175,000 and lower. So part of my question is, can I play with that on that aspect? Can I keep going with that, or should I just go back to the 40? I feel like because my market's so small, I don't want to miss something that that I'm learning.
So again, I want to repeat what I heard and hopefully make it valuable to everyone watching. So what I hear you saying, because you had a head start, you and I had a one-on-one call. I forget when that was. I guess 90 days
3
ago.
months ago, yeah.
You're now 90 days in, or maybe 85 days in. Most folks on this call are at day 1 or day 2 of this. You got into it. You started seeing different yields. And then you took that information and you refined your search to get better deals.
Correct.
That's okay. I would not have blessed that day 7.
Okay.
I would not have blessed that day 20. But as you get into it and your spreadsheet's getting longer and longer and you're starting to see these aha moments, yes, feel free to refine it. And I think the other thing we talked about last time, and please forgive me, I may not remember this correctly, but you were looking potentially at student housing. Do I remember that right?
Yes, sir. So I talked to I mean, again, we're very small numbers, so I don't have that many options. So I talked to the realtors. One of them advised me to stay closer to the college. Makes sense, obviously. But what I liked about her was that she said, what does well is I rent a lot, and she's the one that I would like to go to if I stay in this market to actually buy something, because she's a realtor, she's a property manager, and she's an investor. So nice. She knocks out all those three, and she's super nice. So so she's the one that's giving me the most information. She says she loves to rent out to professors. So we get a lot of professors, I guess. I mean, we're an hour and a half away from Houston, so some of them drive up, maybe some of them just come in and I don't know. So professors out, because I guess she sensed my hesitation of like, hey, look, I don't know if I want to deal with kids or whatnot. So, but with the students aspect of it, that answers my question that I had, like, why are some of these properties like going like hotcakes? And it was because investors were buying them. Some of them are been in the market. I could tell you that they've been on market for, I think my average is about 60 days or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Now that I shrunk my price, they're more to the 40 days, but some of them go within the week or two. And it's because there's a lot of investors that I didn't realize here in Huntsville. And so they come and they buy these properties for same thing for the students or whatnot. So
what you just said, just real quick, Gabriel, what you just highlighted there is valuable. You're going to start to uncover where other investors are playing. And then your job is to figure out, do you like what they're doing? i.e. I should copy it, or B, I don't like what they are doing, so I ignore. Right? Because again, if you see a property come on, like I'm just going to make stuff up. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and it always gets scooped up really fast because they're going to rent it by the room, and they can get more because there's a bathroom or whatever, right? And that keeps coming on and off. You need to ask yourself, well, why? Because maybe they're getting 50% more rent because they They rent the suites for, 70% of the house cost, but you put them together, it's 140%, right? There's value in making that identification. So I would scratch at that a little bit. I would figure out why investors are doing it, because I'm going to guess, Gabriel, when they're done, they're not getting 4% yield. I'm going to guess they're getting 8, 9, or 10, and we don't know why. I'm going to guess it's because they're renting by the room, and the total rent by asset is higher than you expect. That is completely my guess based on history.
Okay.
I would poke
Now
at that a little bit.
I can go down that rabbit hole. Now, a little bit about myself. I work in the Houston area.
Yep.
When we moved to Huntsville, which is an hour and a half north, what I did was I understood the market as far as building wise, and I know that a lot of builders come to Huntsville to retire, to quote unquote retire. They build their 1 or 2 houses a year, and they make their money, and that's it. And so I was like, well, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. It's a small town, blah blah blah. Then I started building little houses or starter houses, not tiny houses, but starter houses, just because nobody was doing that. It's just so I could stay away from everybody, not step on any toes, stay away from from all the big builders or whatnot. And so I was thinking of maybe going to the route of, well, I can cater to the professors. It might be easier, but I do want to dive into what the investors are looking for. You're right. I agree with that.
I think you have to. I think you have to, because I think if you invest. So again, what I'm hearing you say is if I buy an asset that's good for the professors, that's going to be just the single tenant long-term rent. Your yields are going to be lower.
3-2, right?
Yeah,
3-2,
whatever, right?
Yeah.
But again, you're early in this, and there's no harm or foul copying what other investors are doing and just being better at it, right? If you used to build in Huntsville 2-bedroom, 2-bath houses, 962 square feet, but that produces more rent than a 3-2, and you could buy it cheaper, that's going to be an 8, 9, 10% yield. I think you owe it to yourself to at least figure it out.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
I like it.
I'll try that.
We'll keep going. Yeah, I think again, if anybody on this call has a buy box and you notice that there's a certain type that's of asset coming on and going off quickly, here's a clue. That's a hint. There is some investor out there, and maybe several, that know that is a great asset to buy. And trust me, they're not doing it for a 4% yield. They're getting something bigger. So go scratch that itch and go figure it out.
Okay.
All right, Gabriel. Thank you, buddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Steve, how you doing?
Hey, Mike.
Hi.
So I'm listening to everybody, and some of my questions get answered, and then I add more. So
That's okay.
couple things like I'm like Gabriel. I'm in Texas, but DFW area. So the house we're in now, we bought in 21. I had a tenant in here until we moved here in February of this year. So on a verge of an alligator deal, but the plan was for my family and I to move here, and interest rates low, appreciation has been good. So the area I'm focusing in is kind of where we're at, but the variables that we've all experienced in Texas are property taxes. Some of the things that have recently occurred have somewhat changed in that property taxes are being lowered and or trying to reach Prop 13 like California has.
I love Prop 13.
Yeah, so do I. We rented out our home there. Yield there is about 13% on our home there. So, but with that, you mentioned one thing, HOA. Are you just not a fan at all of HOAs at all?
So, in general, HOAs are not investor friendly long term.
Okay.
HOA costs generally go up.
Okay.
HOAs generally add more restrictions as you go forward. So, but again, I don't know all markets. I don't know all areas. If that is what you want and you can get a great yield, just realize, like taxes, they'd seemingly only go one direction, and that's up.
The thought here, at least for me, like when I had a tenant in this house, I would get the notifications, like they're responsible for the landscaping. So I'd
Of
get a
course.
notice from the HOA, hey, you got weeds in your yard. And then I would message my property manager, issue fix. So that's kind of the way I looked at them, is I got another set of eyes looking to see
Absolutely.
exterior if there's any issues there. So but I understand the
But-
variable.
But let me just say something on that. I would have expected your property manager to do some drive-bys every 6 months and make that
They did. So we did
Okay.
have a 6 month inspection, and they're very thorough, videos,
perfect. Okay.
pictures, all that stuff.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
The thing about the property taxes in Texas that I've experienced, maybe Gabriel's same thing, is the rate of increase, right? Like it's just something that you're like, okay, I have a tenant in here for a year or maybe two, and then mid, contract or lease, it goes
You
up.
get hammered. You get hammered.
So I'm 2 hours from Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Is it reasonable, given where we're at now, and we're just starting out, to pivot and look at it, understanding that if I make the pivot, then I'm only focused on that market for 90 days? Or should I stay where I'm at for right now?
So let's have this conversation. And again, I think I've shared this in the past, but we'll do it again here for everyone. Back in 2006, before I went to multifamily, I spent about 6 months flying all over the country trying to find a plan B, because I knew I knew Fresno was a bubble. I didn't know how bad. It's not like I called it, but I knew it was toppy. I spent a lot of time in Texas, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, not so much Austin. But what scared me was the property taxes. Even then, the idea that taxes could go up every year, because again, it would not be my primary home, so I wouldn't have any of that homestead or whatever, scared me to death. It's like an adjustable rate mortgage. And now it's really coming to fruition. I mean, Texas has had some monster property taxes increases the last 2 years. So it is absolutely a concern. And I don't think Texas is alone. I think there's other states that reset, but it's just personal experiences like, oh my God, this is a problem. So we're early. You can change. I do know there's a lot of battle about getting, changing the laws in Texas so it's not so punitive. But that's, you're betting, you're making a big bet on that. So again, I chose a market 2.5 hours away. So 2 hours is closer.
Yep. Okay. And then you mentioned a couple things just talking to people. Is your preference 30 years or newer?
No. That was just for,
okay.
I think that was a conversation around Sacramento.
Okay.
I have bought houses over 100 years old.
Okay.
I prefer 50 years or younger. If you want a real number, it's 50 years or younger. Kind of 80s or newer. But no, I mean, what I was trying to do in the Sacramento area was trying to find a neighborhood where they built 30 years ago, because I don't think Karen has found one yet. So that was just one of the ways I dive into the data.
Okay. And then just given the growth, especially like in this Dallas-Fort Worth area, like the area I'm looking in right now is Sherman County. So like Texas Instruments is putting a chip factory
Nice.
in and around there. So that was my logic for looking there. Similar to what I have some other friends that have invested much earlier than I. But like when Toyota moved from Torrance to here, that's kind of the idea. So with that, there's a lot of new construction happening. And I know throughout your videos, you've talked about the opportunities for getting rate buy downs. How do you factor that into a buy box or even a search when you're looking at new construction that may be not ready for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever that timeline is?
Yeah, as you're kind of learning the buy box in the area, I probably wouldn't have new construction.
Okay.
Right, because there's too many variables. And I don't know about the builders in Texas, but the builders I dealt with in Vegas, it was always kind of like there's two prices, right? There's the base price, and then there's a lot premium, and then there's the upgrades. It's like how am I going to model this? So I would generally avoid new construction as I'm trying to learn the market. Not that I'm anti, if you can find a brand new home that exceeds your yield expectations, by all means, that's great. But it's really tough to model in the beginning.
Okay. And then last couple questions around the buy box. You talked about adding a notes column. And then would you also add another column that reflects like days on market?
I would definitely do that today. Because I think days on market very quickly is going to become the trigger to help identify motivated sellers. So what all of you should do in your market is you should find at what point they have their first price drop. I mean, that's what I would be trying to find. Right. In my market of Mountain View, California, they're dropping prices at day 10. In Fresno, California, it's day 30. I'm guessing it's different across the country, but I want to know, like, for example, let's say you do your research and you see your first price cuts at day 21. I'm just making it up. I would be reaching out to people on day 20, trying to get ahead of that. Because obviously you have a price cut, it jumps to the top of the list. Everybody looks at it. Right. So once you know where you can get price cuts coming, I would use that to your advantage. So yes, I would add that.
I think those are all of my questions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, if you got more, bring it up. We've got time. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I think I mispronounced this last time and I'm about to do it again. So you can help me one more time. Senya. Close?
Yes, perfect, actually.
Yes!
Yes, thank you.
The K is silent.
K is silent, yes.
Yes.
It makes it so much easier.
Yeah. I remembered.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Good to see that you're feeling better.
Oh, yeah. I feel so much better. I feel like myself.
Awesome. I wanted to build on, I believe it was Steve's question about average property age.
Okay.
That was not a consideration for me prior to this call, but since you mentioned 30 years in Sacramento, that was kind of something that spiked my attention.
Sure.
So basically, what would you recommend to look at as far as property age for like new investors like us?
I think in the beginning, I did not have property age in my search. I used property age in the example of Sacramento because I was trying to help Karen find an older community that is good cash flow, right? Like where the renters are. Because in Karen's conversation was like, hey, I can find a bunch of new builds and I know where the gang areas are, but there's a lot in between that. And I bet you, and I'm 99% sure, there's a community in Sacramento where there's a lot of renters and it's kind of workforce housing. I used age of home to help find that. I don't think in the beginning, any of you will have to put age of home in your base buy box criteria. Today, there are so few inventory that age of home could actually be something that you learn about. Like, oh my gosh, for whatever reason, I see that homes over 50 years old are 50K less than homes that are newer. Now, you get to ask yourself why that is. Now, is it because roofs have to be replaced or plumbing or whatnot? I think all data is valuable. As you exit this phase and you could say, I know what the average yield is, you can add criteria like I will never buy a home over 50 years old. But that's down the line. In the beginning, all data is good. Don't make assumptions. Because I have bought plenty of homes that are 50, 60, 70 years old because owner occupants don't want them. But they were completely remodeled 15 years ago. But when the owner occupants look to buy them, they see the home was built in 1928. Well, guys, the entire plumbing system was repaired and wiring was done in 2008. It doesn't show that on the search. So I don't think in the beginning, Senya, I would collect all data, assuming you're between 20 and 40 active listings. Excuse me. In 90 days, you may decide I don't want old homes, but don't make that decision early.
Yeah, it's not an option for me because as you were mentioning, we were discussing the age. I played around with my buy box, and when I selected that criteria, it wiped out all of my buy box.
There you go. So yeah, I would not sweat Age of Home.
Mhm.
Age of Home was when it was first built. It doesn't talk about updates. It doesn't do any of these things. So I think a lot of folks overemphasize Age of Home, in my opinion. I wouldn't worry about it, certainly in the beginning.
Well, thanks for clarifying.
Of course. Van Rith, I think.
Sorry, you got it right this time.
Yes. Trying.
You're 2 for 2.
Yeah. All right. I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing that again.
So for the buy box, I was wondering, do we think about like what we want to do after, like the kind of the exit strategy for the property during the buy box building phase, or are we just
not in the beginning?
Okay.
Not for the first 90 days. This is about focused daily execution on one set of criteria. Collect all that your spreadsheets in the next 90 days could have 100, could have 150, 200 rows.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what you're trying to get to the end of this is, okay, now I know what the average is in this. And you can start to articulate good and great, or bad even, right? Bad, average, good, or great. In the beginning, don't worry about exit. Not yet.
Okay. And then you said earlier not to mix types, right? The like quadplexes and single family homes, right?
Again, I strongly discourage that.
Okay.
You can do multifamily or single family, but for most people, and I haven't found one, but I'm sure it does happen, where that makes sense to put those together. The costs are different, the rents are different, the insurance, it's just too many additional variables.
And so I'm looking at 90806, and it's broken up into like 3 sections in Long Beach. So does that kind of matter at all? Like if it's kind of not adjacent?
I don't know. Let's let me see if I can share my screen. We have time, so let's just do this together. So you said, I'm sorry, I don't remember the zip code.
90806.
90806. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of this. And you're doing single family?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I see is 15 homes. Does that sound about right?
I think so. I can widen that search a little bit more. I don't know. Like,
I mean, I don't even know how many homes are for sale in Long Beach. CA. No idea. 284. Too much. Yeah, so if you're starting at the Long Beach level, you got to go down from this.
Okay, so I can widen my search then to have more.
Yeah, you can, absolutely.
Okay.
Again, the whole up front of this is to figure out where you can get the 20 to 40. They don't have to be continuous.
Okay.
I guess that was the question.
Yeah.
But once they're set, we're locked in.
Okay. That makes sense then. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have any more at the moment.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Michael.
Very cool. No problem. John?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I am actually renting right now. Haven't owned since '08. We know what happened there.
Yep.
So I need the house hack, which makes me lean towards multifamily. Thanks to your program, I made a buy box 4 months ago, but I only tracked it for 2 weeks because it spurred me to a bunch of other learning. My timeline is 9 to 12 months out for an actual purchase, financially wise.
Sure.
In my market, my whole county of multifamily is 30 listings. If I look at single family and do something where I live in it for the year and then rent it out type, it looks like it's about 40, but I've never really looked at it. Should I actually be looking at both since I'm unhoused at the moment?
What I hear you saying is most likely you're going to do the small multis is what I think that's kind of your preference. It sounds like.
Yes. I just don't want to feel like I all of a sudden missed out on double the yield because I wasn't willing to live in it for a year and then rent a single family.
I would say in most markets, and again, I have no idea if yours is true, but most markets, your yield will be higher, certainly as a house hack in a unit. certainly when you calculate your reduction in monthly expenses. So given what I have heard thus far, I would say continue to search for your county. 30, I think you said 30 listings for multifamily. I would just hammer that every day. That sounds like the right answer.
Okay.
The other thing you could do is you could add, and I don't know where you are, but sometimes, and maybe an agent can help you do this, is agents list like granny flats, mother and you units, ADUs. They're called lots of different things, casitas, under residential. Dion has actually found most of his deals is multifamilies listed as single families because the agent is lazy, maybe. You might want to have somebody help you kind of create a search based on keywords, because you might be missing some sweetheart deals with, a house in the front and a house in the back.
Okay. Excellent.
Sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Anybody else have some question about buy boxes? This is important stuff. You've got to get this right. You got to lock it in. Steve, looks like your hand's up.
Yep. Another question. So just talking about from a reserve standpoint,
sure.
What type of reserves should we have? Because kind of through this process, I know you've talked about getting your money right and things like that. So that's one of the things I'm also going to do, like my wife and I have been talking about, as far as using the buy box in the 90 days to also really hunker down on some of our variable expenses that we do have some control over.
Nice.
We have 2 boys that are in sports and all that stuff. So some of that stuff we can't control, but the things that we can, we're focused on. So
awesome.
From a reserve standpoint, where should we be? I have a HELOC on my house in California. I know what you talked about as far as not jeopardizing the home you and your family are living in. I'm not doing that.
True. Yes.
But how do you, given where interest rates are and are probably going to be for a while, I also understand that you've talked about it's just a variable. I know that, but how do we factor all of that in either building our buy box or putting ourselves in a position so that when we do see something, we can, initiate an offer or try and buy something.
So this is really, this isn't so much a question about the buy boxes. Nothing we've talked about today will change, but how do you, let's say you do the work, how do you feel good about writing that offer?
Yep.
So I think everyone, Dave Ramsey's emergency fund, I think everybody needs to have a household emergency fund. You pick the number you're comfortable with, 3, 6 months, whatever that is, that's your choice. I think you need to have an emergency fund for your rental units. Like in the beginning, for me, that was $5,000. That has since grown as my unit count. Now it's 50 grand. I have a lot of units. And then whenever I use that, I refill it up right away. So you've got to create that reserve account. And again, I put that in a separate account. Like the $5,000 when we had only Norris Drive and Terrace, it was in another bank account, not connected to anything, because I wanted it to really be that fund. So that's how I see this, right? So family household first, rental unit reserve, then you're building down payment money acquisitions. And again, to your earlier point, the HELOC because right now it's a rental, right?
Yes.
That's fine, right? You're not putting a HELOC on your primary home. That's a rental unit. So I'm cool with that. If I used it, same rule of thumb, I would focus on paying it off in a year or less. That would always be my goal.
Yeah.
But that's how I look at various emergency funds.
Okay. And that's my plan. Like, we have our house rented out. I haven't touched any of the money that's there. It's literally separate account, and I don't plan on using it or even using it until there's an opportunity. And I think that's one of the first times I just haven't paid attention enough, but $5,000 reserve for the rental is something
that was where I was
add to mine. Okay.
And the reason I was comfortable there, let's not get it twisted, is because when I bought something, I did all the repairs up front.
Yep.
Right. It wasn't like I bought a dump and then I was in trouble, right? When I buy something, I fix everything because that's my make ready costs.
Right. Okay.
So I was comfortable at $5,000.
Okay. I think that's reasonable for me in that since we lived in the home, and then prior to us, there's certain things you'll put up with when you're living there, and then when you know someone else is going to be there, we did a lot of make ready stuff, but we had already been doing that throughout the years. So, okay, so I'll add that to mine. And then just on interest rates,
Sure.
I know, do we just ignore them right now in that we're just trying to track the market, and we just say, well, they're at 8% or 8.5%? Like, how do we factor in an opportunity to get a rate buy down or seller financing?
I would, in the beginning, for all of us, I would assume 8.5% cost of capital. Just make it a flat assumption across the board. And then in 30, 60 days, when we're starting to build out the spreadsheet and the other variables, then what you could do is you could start getting what I call advanced. You could take the same property, put it in two different rows, do one of them at 8.5, and then do the other one with a 2-1 buy down, right? Or seller credits or all of that. So you can see how the yield fluctuates. But that's for future Steve.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Awesome.
And then just real quick, just a personal note.
Please.
My 9-year-old walked in here. I watch your videos every day, and he was very enthusiastic that we were on this call. So
what's his name?
His name's Mateo.
Hey, Mateo, how are you, buddy? I don't know. You probably can't hear me, but
no,
hey, Mateo.
I get the headphones on.
Right,
He's
you can tell him I said hi.
Yeah, he's very enthused that we're on this. So thanks.
Very cool. I love to hear that. Thank you, Steve. Yeah. All right, Karen. Hi.
Hey, so I was just, while we're all talking, looking on realtor.com, and the one zip code that I'm determining is what I'm going to look at. Now, if I want to get it, once again, try to get it under 40 listings, is it okay to limit it by price? So like under 400K? Yeah. Okay.
Whatever you got to do.
Okay. Got it. Perfect.
Yeah. You play with the variables where you're comfortable, set it. You're in.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. Hi, Sergey.
Yes. Good morning. I a little bit stuck with decision about Bay Area. So for a test for this learning purpose, we decide go with my backyard.
Yep.
So what kind of criteria? It's price. It's everywhere very high.
Yeah.
Yesterday
do I remember you were talking about San Jose, California. Do I remember from last time? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me share my screen and just see how crazy the Bay Area is.
Yeah. Yesterday I tried to look for multifamily houses, but then I think I don't have this kind of down payment and everything. Maybe even I don't have knowledge at all. So maybe today I got answer that it should be single family homes just for learning purpose, and I will stuck with this.
Okay. I think for learning purposes, single family homes is fine. Mm-hmm. San Jose, California. I'm just typing it in. I don't know. I'm assuming you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it looks like there's 592 homes. San Jose is obviously a huge city. So you could there's plenty of zip codes. Silver Creek's going to be very different than, I don't actually know the different cities in San Jose.
Actually, this whole city is around 20 minutes. I can select any city around.
Yeah. So this is what we have to do. We have to figure out for you what's going to produce an active list of 20 to 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it's like that's daily, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You set the criteria, there's 27 listings, lock that in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you have to do. So San Jose is too big. 592 is too big.
Not Milpitas, maybe.
Again, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a small city.
Milpitas, California. Oh, there you go. Milpitas, 36 homes. That's less than 40. Mm-hmm. But dude, I would definitely add a price point here. Right? Freaking $12 million. Are you kidding me? I don't know. I have no idea what so yeah, I would definitely add a price point because you don't want to be looking at $10 million homes. That's just crazy. But yeah, I think for you, given that because you're in the Bay Area and the Bay Area is full of really ridiculous expensive homes, I would put in a price criteria. I wonder what happens if we add that to San Jose. Oh, it didn't change much. Let's try 1, 2. Oh, wow. Still, geez, California's crazy. Let's try, I don't know, 1, 2 is pretty good. Let's try Let's try one, two. Let's try. Actually, you know what? Let's get crazy with it. Let's try 3 bedrooms or less, and 2 bedrooms or less. I've never done this before, so let's see what happens. Oh, it's 92 homes. You just got to play with your search criteria. You got to figure out. You've got to get this number down to 40. Otherwise, it's not helpful. Let's try 2, 2. See what happens. Oh, there you go. Again, I'm not saying do this search, but I just took San Jose, California, down to 29 homes, under 1,200,000, no more than 2 bedrooms, no more than 2 baths. Not saying you should use this by any stretch, but it is possible. This is what you got to play with. And again, you could play with this for hours. Again, I think I talked about with Sacramento earlier. I played with this for like 20 hours to try to figure out what my eventual criteria is going to be. I didn't know. I mean, I say it's so easy now. 93703, single family home, 3 or 4, but it took me hours to figure out what I wanted to stay focused on. This is what you got to play with.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
You got it. Very, very cool. Gabriel.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I didn't know if I had a couple more questions on the.
Please, man. Let's go.
On the second portion of that buy box. So,
yep.
My biggest portion, the thing that I got stuck on is on from your videos of your package of your program. When you go with a video that basically merges the two, I know we've been talking a lot about the first portion, the information portion of it.
Yep.
And then there's the numbers portion of it.
Yep.
Right. And then there's a video that you talk about merging the two. That way you have a lot more. And then some of the information portion might drop out later on as you get more into detail or whatnot. And so that's kind of sort of where I've been in that aspect and like been playing around. That's why I honed my search from 230,000 to 175,000 because I already knew that the 230 was not going to be something that I'm looking at because that's usually in my market, that's the new homes pricing. And that brings me the 2%, the 3% or whatnot.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
And so, but I've heard between like with all the YouTube, all the videos, your daily videos that you show, one time several times you've mentioned that like, oh yeah, just play with the numbers and then you'll see the difference on the yield between whenever you do a loan and then whenever you do all cash. Okay. Now, you allude to that when you do a loan or when you borrow, your yield goes up. Is that correct?
So
or maybe I'm interpreting incorrectly because when I think when those
videos were recorded, rates were below where they are today, right? So it's called positive carry, right? So rates at 8%. So if your yield, for example, is 7, but your cost of capital is 3, the more debt you take, the higher the yield goes. But if your yield is say 4, but your cost of capital is 8, it's going to go down with debt.
Okay, yeah, that was more of my question because I was starting to play with the numbers, and so, for example, one property that I was looking at is 120,000. If I buy it in cash, then I'm at a 5% yield. Okay. But if I borrow, how much was I saying I was going to borrow? I was going to put 40% down.
Yeah.
And it was a closing cost of 9,000. I was repair cost of 50 grand, all that other stuff. So I'm playing with the numbers as a 500, but I'm using, you just you just made a mention to another person about 8%. I bumped it up to 9 because I'm assuming I'm going to have to get an investment loan, investor loan. So anyway, so then that's at 2%.
Yeah. So we're in a very different world than some of my earlier videos when rates are low. If your yield, I think you said, was 4 and your cost of capital is 9, it's reverse what's normally out there. So yeah, your yield will go down.
So
you're correct. You're doing it right.
Okay. All right. That's what I was like, hey, it's not making any sense because it's flip flopped.
Yeah. For 40 years, yield was high. Usually yield was higher than cost of capital. Today, not the case in many markets.
I'm trying to keep, like what Alex was talking about earlier, I'm trying to keep focused. So when do you think I can start maybe thinking about other avenues like I'm trying to find the words that you were saying.
I think you have one question left to answer for yourself. And that was what we talked about earlier. Until there are deals getting done in your market quickly,
yeah,
I think you have to answer why. Because those investors likely aren't doing those for 2, 3, 4% yields. They're likely seeing something that you're not seeing. I think you have to answer that. And you're pretty close, right? You're into this 90 days. You're really close to start looking at other avenues and doing other calculations. But I think that's the last thing I'm hearing from you that deserves another scratch.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I'm that, and that's I will definitely focus on that this week. And that was, but going back to that portion of it, it's kind of like I'm a little scared just because I'm not so much of a people person. So I was alluding to like, okay, do I need to start, because I'm going to average between 2 to 5%, depending on if I borrow money or not. When do I need to start talking to people or realtors about, what's that word? About the different types of financing, like, seller financing, like with the 1%, the different kind of financing that the other guys in your channel, whenever you do the videos, the lenders of your channel, when they talk about like the 40, 50, 10 or something like that.
Yeah, the combined loan to value, CLTV
combined, and
loans.
all that other stuff is like, that kind of scares me a little bit. If I have to go that route to get my percentages higher than the 5%, like to get the A7s and the 8s and the 9s, if I have to go to that route, if I stay in this market, that's kind of sort of. But I'll work on that first part that you said, as far as
you're almost there. I would not work. So back to your question, I don't think I would worry about financing just yet.
Okay.
I think what it sounds like is going on in Huntsville, Texas, is there are deals being done. There are successful investors getting deals done. We got to figure out what they're seeing. That's the last step, I think, for you.
Okay. Now, is this maybe just? Now, do you think they're just older investors that have been in the game, and they're just going to play the time card and they just buy whatever? Do you think?
I don't know. My
history.
history
Just being lazy. I don't want to start deep. Get down in that.
I would never guess why an investor is making a move.
Okay.
And there's probably multiple. And they're probably executing a similar strategy. So there's opportunity there's opportunity everywhere. There are successful investors everywhere. We got to figure out who they are. And what I would probably do is I would find some of the listings that went quick, and I would actually call the listing agent and say, hey, congratulations, I saw this house went quickly. I was looking at it. I was thinking about it as a rental, and see if they tell you anything about the buyer. You never know how chatty they're going to be. They may say, yeah, I got an investor in my pocket who buys these all the time. I don't know. I would try to, if there's a certain configuration that sells quickly, I want to know why. Okay. And the first person I'd call is the listing agent. I would probably also, I would go to title, and I would try to figure out if there's a lot of buyers. Like, I don't know. I think Texas actually is a non-disclosure state, so it probably doesn't work in Texas. But like in California, I'd go to title and figure out who all these buyers are. It doesn't work in Texas, I don't think. But I would definitely call the listing agent and figure out. Tell me about the buyer, because I was going to buy it as a rental. Wasn't sure what they were going to do. Blah blah blah. And realtors are chatty people usually.
Okay. I'll add that to my list.
Awesome. Nice work, Gabriel. You're close, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Senna. Oh, still on mute.
Hi, me? Okay.
Yep.
So it's Senya, yes.
You got too cocky.
Sorry. So I just wanted to get your take, maybe an advice on the dilemma that I have.
Sure.
So I'm currently deciding between going with a single family versus multi-family housing. So basically my goal is to scale up in the very near future.
Sure.
So there are known advantages to multifamily investing, and I'm saying like 2 to 4 units, mostly maybe 2, 3. So we have economies of scale. also that pivotal threshold of reaching those 4 properties, right, where lending becomes more complex. Like I feel that I would reach it, much slower because while adding on additional units, right? But on the other hand, as you mentioned so many times in your videos, is that tenant turnover is much better in a single family housing.
Significant.
So that's my dilemma. Wanted to see.
So again, I think you're jumping ahead. I think in the beginning we just need to learn the skill. I will tell you that, if I could wave a magic wand and I could have my ideal portfolio today, it would be 20 single family homes. They stay longer, a lot less headaches. Once you have units, and I'm talking 2, 3, 4 units, let alone 10 or 20, you're a freaking counselor half the time. And now I have property management and I hear stuff secondhand and it still drives me crazy. Oh, so-and-so complex is parking in the wrong place and this, that. If I had my ideal portfolio, it would be 20 single family homes. Now, obviously I built a portfolio, scaled up. I don't have that today, but if I had a magic wand, that would be it. Because I want lazy. I want less headaches. Now, I know that's not possible for everyone. And that's just my ideal portfolio. There's nothing wrong with fourplexes. But you get fourplexes side by side, more turnover, more headaches, just more stuff, more drama. Not that it's bad, it's just more drama. But you do only have one roof. You have, there's the scale is true, but the people that say bigger is better, that's a sexy marketing thing. It's not always true. It can be true, but it's not always true.
Got it. Single family it is. Thank you.
At least in the beginning, right? If you get to the end of this, because the other thing about single family that is not said enough, I don't think, is let's say you get into this and you're a landlord. Excuse me. And you hate it. You don't like it. The easiest thing to get rid of is a single family home. More buyers, easier financing. It's just easier. Right. So even Grant Cardone, the bigger is better guy himself, started with a single family home.
That's a great point. Thank you.
You got it. Van Reeth, I think you were next.
So, for the inputs for the spreadsheet, if things change, like say, expenses or income, like how, because interest rates might go up, and then in California, there, I guess, the insurance commissioner said the rates can go up by 40% or more, depending on. Yeah. So that's pretty recent. So if that passes, then rates go up. Like, how often do you change those inputs on the spreadsheet?
So in the beginning, for the first 90 days, make your assumptions, whatever you're comfortable with, and just leave them alone.
Okay.
Just because again, you're trying to get to the end game. As you get 30, 45, 60 days into this, you're going to start refining what you don't know. Then you can make changes. Okay. I'm in my spreadsheet now. When I really get close to a deal, I call my insurance agent and say, here's the address. Tell me what it'll be.
Okay.
Right. So I can guess because I have similar properties, but I'll get a quote. Right. Or at least a bid or whatever you want to call it. Maybe not a firm quote, but an idea of what it's going to be.
Okay.
But don't overthink it in the beginning. Sometimes you kill yourself with too many data inputs.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Of course. Rick, how you doing, Rick?
Hey, good. How's it going?
Wonderful.
Good. I've kind of trying to figure out what I'm doing next. I think I'm going to do a house hack. Don't necessarily have questions about that, but I've got a current portfolio of about 21 long-term rentals and currently building a short-term rental. But my current long-term portfolio is it's about 50% loan to value, 4.25% interest rates, but it's 5-year fixed. So I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do next. If I want to scale into bigger, or if I want to just like 1031 and do a bunch of single families, something like that. So I'm kind of.
So tell me about the 5 years. Are you 1 year into that? Are you 3 years into that? How long is?
They balloon in 2020, the middle of 2026 for
Now, is
one
this
of
like
them.
a portfolio loan or?
Yeah, they're bundled together. So one of them
Okay.
is balloons in the middle of 2026, like June, and then the
Okay.
other one is like January of 2027.
All right, so you got time.
So yeah, so
Okay.
I've got some time, and I'm just trying to figure out if I want to go bigger. The problem with the buy box and the bigger stuff, right? If I go 10 to 40 unit buildings, there's very, very few of them.
Yeah, in the
So
beginning, you're not going to start there. You got to start with, small residential stuff to learn the skill that I talk about. Yeah, looking at the big stuff or LoopNet or Craigsy or whatever they are. Yeah, it's going to be tough to do that. Plus, I think I think the big stuff's in for a huge haircut. So learning that today it'll be very different in 18 months, in my opinion.
Right.
So I would start where the most volume is.
okay, yeah. So you're thinking more along the lines of like continue with most of my properties are 2 to 4 units.
Yeah.
So probably continue in that path.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not secret about my plan. My plan is to focus on residential, so 1 to 4 units for the next 18 months. And my magic wand is to start 1031ing, because again, I think single family homes are going to go up in price, at least a little bit. And I think commercial is going to come down, potentially way down. So I'll do what I did in my book. I'll 1031 out of this house and buy a distressed apartment. I'll do it I'm going to repeat what's in the book, and people are going to call me crazy. I'm going to go from 170 units to 300, and people are going to figure out what the hell happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean that makes sense. I was trying to figure out what to do because I've got so much equity sitting in those all these properties and just trying to figure out what to do with it. So
Yeah,
and I'm
don't be in
struggling
a
with
rush.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm struggling with some of the C class stuff that's can be headaches. So
Yep. Yeah, I will go up in units and up in quality.
yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking. So yeah, like go more into the B and A class kind of stuff. So okay.
Yeah, that's about 18 months. I mean, I'm seeing it almost every day in the real deal. Just these units just getting crushed in value. But it's still the first inning. It's like the bottom of the first inning. It's still really early.
Yeah, I suspect some of these operators that weren't really
no, they were financial engineers. They weren't operators.
Yeah.
Don't you dare call them operators.
Yeah.
They're financial
yeah.
engineers. Yeah. Very cool. You good, Rick?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've got a lot going on in my head with, everything, but I'll figure it out. So
very cool. All right. Well, Shri, you've been on my screen all day and you haven't asked me a question yet. How you doing, Shri?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well. I feel great. I feel great for the first time.
All right. Well, good to hear. Yeah, I wasn't able to join last week, but I did hear the video, the recording. So I was just thinking through it. I'm not new to real estate. I have a couple of townhomes in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
And I've had like 5 houses in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live.
Oh, yep.
And I'm also part of a lot of syndications in Phoenix and apartment buildings.
Okay.
So now with the market resettling, especially with the apartments, with what you were saying, I want to start from the beginning. So I'm most familiar with Atlanta. I know a ton of brokers, investors, bankers, everything. I think Greenville really has a really good market coming up. It used to be the 3rd largest city in South Carolina. It's now the 1st. Wow. Very long. Yeah, it's BMW builds its plants, X7s there, billion-dollar plants, Michelin, a lot of great companies, 2.5 hours from Atlanta.
Okay.
But what I know is Atlanta really well and the context. So to learn the skill, I'm thinking I'm going to hone down over here.
I would. Yeah. And again, for you, given your history and background, it may take 60 days. It could take 90. But I think learning like back to basics, I'm going to learn to play golf in my backyard at my local driving range. And then I could take that skill anywhere.
Yeah.
I think you're making the right call. Make it Atlanta.
Yeah. And I think that's my focus because I've been playing every sport so far. So
you can't play golf and basketball and hockey.
Yeah. And that's the primary reason I think I need to hear this for every week and remind me to get back on this. So I'll focus on Atlanta. Small question about the buy box, and this is what I put up on the chat.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, it's very small. That's why I just thought I'd mention because you might revisit it when you're going through your sheet.
Okay.
So you mentioned that ideally we should get to a place where we can whittle down our numbers to about 20 to 40 units.
Yep.
But you also said that we might end up with 100 or more sheets. And I'm thinking, are we still tracking things that are leaving the market? Are we leaving it on there?
You're leaving it on the list. You're putting a date, the date it left. That's all valuable, right? It came on September 2nd. It's gone September 9th. In the beginning, that's all value.
Right.
Because you're trying to see the heartbeat of the market.
Yeah.
And kind of like Gabriel was talking earlier, he identified a certain asset type that's selling quickly while others are aging out. That's all value. And you won't be able to see that if you don't have the history.
Yep.
That's how your list will get long.
Yeah, I can totally see this. It's like driving through the neighborhood for 90 days, right? And you're just seeing everything that's going and just keeping tabs of it. So I see where you're going with it. I just want to confirm that. So
you got it. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. All right. Any other questions, or we will bring up the very simple spreadsheet and talk about that, kind of give you 2 weeks to play with it. All right. Let me try to share my screen.
Hey, Mike. So I got one last quick question.
Please, Jason.
I remember on day 0, we talked about buying with renters already, or tenants already in place, and also thinking about increasing rents when looking at properties. You mentioned you could talk about it during this meeting. I don't know if it's better before the sheet or after the sheet.
No, we can do it now. So again, for the first 90 days, I wouldn't worry about whether tenant occupied or not.
Mm-hmm.
And also I would get market rents in the beginning. Because one of the things you're going to find out about a lot of tenant occupied properties is they're below market rents.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the first, let's call it 21 days, you're looking at 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, and market rents are $1,500. Put in $1,500. After day 21, or whenever you start getting comfortable with this, you're going to look at the listing and go, oh my gosh, existing rents are $1,100. Then you're going to put in $1,100 because you're only going to buy with actuals.
Gotcha.
Right. So that's kind of the pivot, right? In the beginning, don't get confused. Everything's a 3.2, $1,500. When you get more comfortable, you'll add actuals. And that will help you drive a better offer, because obviously 1,100 is less than 15. 1,100 is going to dramatically change the yield. It'll be part of your negotiation, all of that. So that was part 1. Part 2 of the question, I already forgot. I'm sorry, Jason. What was part 2?
Yeah, no worries. It's the process or the thoughts of how to increase rents if you do get the tenant occupied properties.
So that will be some things you'll have to consider. So this is probably day 60 or day 90. So we're past market versus actuals. Now we're like into execution. You're going to have to figure out what their lease says, because if they're in a lease and they got 10 months left at 1,100, well, guess what? They got 10 months left at 1,100.
Right.
So you got to figure out the lease date. You have to figure out your rules, because you might be in a state with rent control, like California, right? So you have to figure that out. But I would tell you, in my experience, anytime you're raising rents more than 10% or a couple $100, depending on your rent price, most people will move. Most people will move. So those are my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, yeah. Ask questions. This is important stuff. So what I brought up here is my very, very, very simple spreadsheet after doing this for 20 years. Your spreadsheet should not look like this simple. You should have a lot more columns, notes columns, date columns, days on market we talked about earlier. You could have a lot more. And in the beginning, it could be a lot more. As I think it was Gabriel alluded to, once you kind of get into this, you'll start to streamline your spreadsheet. You'll start to hide columns or delete columns because they're not important anymore. But don't overthink it. In the first 21 to 30 days, if you think it's important once, add it. Because you're trying to, I think Shree's point, you're driving through a neighborhood and you don't know what you don't know yet. So add the variables. In the beginning, what you are eventually going to get to is you're going to get to the important numbers. And for me, I break them down into 3 variables. There's how much cash comes out of your pocket, which for most of us, that is the down payment, repair cost. We'll talk about this one in a minute, and closing costs. Typically, closing costs, again, you could talk to title or escrow, will be a percentage of the deal, 1%, 1.2, whatever that is. Figure that out for your area. You can talk to title or escrow. Let's talk about this column here. This is very important. Now, Gabriel, he's a general contractor. He has experience there, so he's already refined these numbers. That's great. For most of you, I would put in A, B, or C. And I would define what A, B, and C are. This is what I would tell most people to do. A means the property I'm looking at is move-in ready. AKA needs $0. B, the structure of the house is fine. The mechanicals are fine. Air conditioners, heaters, boilers, roofs, the big things. But needs to be cleaned, painted. Paint, flooring. Figure out what that is for your area. I generally put in, I think it was $10,000. Or maybe it was 8,000. Whatever that is for your area. Just in the beginning, don't overcomplicate this part. Most of you overcomplicate this. Most of us aren't general contractors. So A is 0. B, figure it out. Talk to other agents, talk to other investors. Again, paint and carpet, paint and flooring, because a lot of people do LVT now, linoleum planks. And then C is we have to gut the kitchen, gut the baths. And, that could be 40 grand, 30 grand, whatever that is for you. So a lot of you, I want you to hear this. A lot of you in the beginning, when you're building this list out, you're going to see a very clean property and you're going to see a junker. And you're going to get so confused because you don't know the difference. Just like, I think it was Jason's question just a minute ago about rent. Just make a base assumption in the first 21 days. It's A, B, or C. And again, you could be wrong. Maybe you put B and then you do a walkthrough and it's a C. It's okay. Change it. Right? So again, we're trying to get to how much cash has to come out of my pocket to get this asset. So that's that. Any questions about this first part? We'll go part by part because we got 20 minutes. Any questions about cash coming out of your pocket? And I'm looking for thumbs up because I can't see both screens. Okay, cool. Then we're going to go into your expenses. These are your monthly expenses. Again, to streamline the spreadsheet, I've simplified it. You can add columns. Like I put expenses and vacancies here. You could put reserves if you want as another column. If you're going to do reserves, 10% is a great number to put in. You have to figure out property management. If you're going to self-manage, you could do 0 if you'd like. Taxes and insurance, you can figure out the basic ratio or get a quote, divide by 12. Mortgage payments, you can actually, depending, because some people are sophisticated with Excel, others are not. I would just put in your full mortgage payment here. If you're comfortable with Excel, I would assume 8.5 or 9%. Make it the same assumption, whatever you're comfortable with. If you're not good with Excel, you can go to your phone and pull out a mortgage calculator on app and just calculate your payment and just type the message in or type the amount in. That's going to be the monthly expenses. And then this is just a total. Then what you do is you find the monthly rent. You do some simple math. This is just subtraction. You take that number by 12. And then the only number that all of this stuff matters is column key. I simply take this number divided by my cash. I take every asset, every investment, whether it's a single family house or 20-unit apartment building, through this spreadsheet, and I only buy the best yield. Right? I buy the highest yield. This is what I'm trying to get all of you to. This is Sri going back to basics in Atlanta. He's going to figure out what a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or whatever he decides in Atlanta yields. It's not that you're going to buy those, but you're going to learn that skill. And you're going to have lots of rows in this. So this is what we're trying. This is the ultimate goal. This is day 90. You're going to be able to come back to us and say, Michael, in my market of Sacramento, to go back there, it's a 5% yield for the homes in my buy box. That's the success we're trying to get to. That's average. And then for me, good is 1.5% higher than average. and great is 3 points higher than average. So that's how I get to average, good, or great. You're trying to learn the skill of getting to average. And again, your spreadsheet should not look like this in the beginning. For the first 30 days, you should probably have twice as many columns. Add whatever you think is important, whatever you think is interesting. Certainly days on market, date identified, a notes field, whatever you think is important. And I'll stop there and see if there's any questions. Any questions about the base tracking spreadsheet? Yes, Jason.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is, I've done some of this. I watched a buy box video and I was just playing around with the spreadsheet before. Is that a lot of the yields are deep in negative, as is, like with the rates and everything. As we kind of go through this first exercise, do we just continue to track that as is? Don't play around with like any type of the numbers?
So in the beginning, the numbers are what the numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting to a point and you want to play with because one of the things I hope all of you understand at some point in the first 45 or 60 days is, I want you to ask yourself, how can I make this yield go up 3%? Now, obviously, a lower price can do that. But having the seller play closing cost, that'll change it. Getting a rate buy down, that could change it. Getting the seller to pay some of the make ready costs, that could change it. So at some point, and Jason, if you feel like you're there, I think that is a great exercise. How many different ways can I get the yield to go up 3%? Because it's wild. Like if you lower the price 5%, you get a 1% lower interest rate, you get closing costs covered by the seller. You'd be shocked at how high the yield can go. That's where I want all of us to get. Most of us aren't there yet, but I hope we all get there. Because that's what I talk about all the time is great. It's a 2% negative today, but because you have the skill, you know what variables you can twist to write a great offer to get 4%, which is a 6-point swing. Now, that doesn't guarantee the seller says yes, but you're only writing great deals. We don't do average deals here. And that's where I hope everybody gets. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And then can you repeat again what the criteria was for a good and great deal?
Good is 1.5% higher yield than average. Great is 3% higher than average.
All right, thank you.
Of course. Other questions about this? Senya.
Hi, Mike. So you just mentioned rate buy down by the seller. Would you be able to go over how it would work?
Yeah. So what you could do, so you can ask for 2% credit. And this would be something I would probably go to Matt, the mortgage guy, with and have him run scenarios for you if you're not comfortable. But what I would do is, for example, I would run the mortgage payment at 8.5%. Right. If we pull out our calculators, let me just do this real quick. Or actually, I'm going to go to I'm just going to go to Google search, type in mortgage calculator, just so all of us can do this. So that comes up for me. So I'm pulling up just an online mortgage calculator. I'm going to put in 500 grand is the loan amount. And I'm going to put in 9% interest just to see. Oh, I got it at 0, not 50 grand. So my mortgage payment is $4,023 at 9%. Very simply, what I would do is I'd go in right now. And again, if I'm not, I could do this in Excel, but if you're not sophisticated with Excel, I would just change the 8 to 9. And now the payment is $3,669. So that's a rate. So that's getting the seller to pay points. Right. So the sellers can pay points, right? 2% of closing costs. You can choose to use those to buy down the rate. So you could, what I would do is I put, 123 Main Street on line 1, 123 Main Street on line 2, one at 9%, one at 8%. And your payment, I think, was like $600 difference. You could do all of that. in here. And then the beauty of getting closing costs from the seller is that might be the best use, but maybe you want to use it to, for closing costs, 8,000 in closing costs. You can play with these variables, and folks like Matt and other mortgage brokers, so use who you're comfortable with. They can run through scenarios. Like, what is the best for you? Taking the cash as closing costs, taking it as a rate buy down, splitting it up. These are all choices, but definitely, certainly for the next 6 months, probably the next year, every offer I'm writing is asking for closing cost credit, and then I'll decide how I want to use them.
So basically, rate buy down is just another term for seller covering closing costs. Is that it?
Well, it's seller credits. You get to decide how to use them. Maybe it's closing costs. Maybe it's rate. Maybe it's mortgage brokers call them points, right? You can do points to get a lower rate. Like going from a 9 to an 8% 30-year mortgage, that's with points. So that would be through the loan. Closing cost credit would be more like, the transaction costs and all of those things. So there's two different vocabulary for that. But it's still seller credits.
Okay, so great. But how would I'm just trying to understand logistics of the rate buy down. Like, what would the seller need to do?
You need to write in your offer, seller to give me 2% closing cost credits. So the seller doesn't care how. Let's say it's a $400,000 home. They're going to give you $8,000 in credits. The seller doesn't give a rat's ass how you use them. They just know they're giving you $8,000 in credits. Then you work with a mortgage broker to figure out what's best for you. Do you use points to buy down the rate? Do you use half of it to buy down the rate, the other half for closing costs? The seller doesn't care. They're just 2%. They don't care how you use it.
Michael.
Thank you.
Yes.
Michael, may I suggest something?
Sure, please. I don't know who's speaking.
It's Catherine.
Oh, hi, Catherine. Yes.
Senya, if you just put in your contract, seller to contribute 2% or whatever percent you're going to ask for.
Yes.
Toward buyers' closing costs, prepaids, and or points.
Perfect.
And then you can even add verbiage to say which may be used toward rate buy down. Something
I love that. I think all of us should have that in our offers, especially because we're going to be dealing with motivated sellers. And again, the seller's going to look at that they're going to look at that as a price reduction. It's just hidden in a different way. They're getting $8,000 less in this example. You're just using it what's best for you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Catherine.
Awesome. And again, I wouldn't stress about the process of the 8,000. It's just you're asking the seller to take a little bit less at closing so that it makes your deal a little bit better. And then you'll work with a mortgage professional and maybe an agent to figure out what's best for your situation. Gabriel?
Yes, Mike. On the sheet, going back to the spreadsheet that you were talking about, is it a proper assessment to view like, okay, well, once I started playing with the numbers, I noticed that for my price point, because I'm under the 200,000 mark or whatnot, like if I lower the price roughly, I have to lower the price at least $10,000 for it to turn into a 1% yield increase, for example.
Okay.
And then let's say the rent, I have to go about $125 up on the rent for it to correlate to a 1%, to bump it up to a 1%. Because right now, the column that I'm using your column, and it doesn't have a point, it has a whole number percentage on the yield.
Yeah, you can change. Yeah.
So if I think about that, I mean, is that a proper assessment as far as like, while I'm playing with the numbers, like, oh, okay, I noticed that 10,000 price reduction or I haven't pinpointed the mortgage aspect. How much does it change the yield on the mortgage aspect if I go from a 9% mortgage rate to an 8% mortgage rate or something like that? I don't know that.
I would play with all of those, but that's the beauty of doing this, because a lot of people, when they get into this, only think price, and price is certainly an indicator, but there's so many other aspects that you can play with that dramatically increase the yield. Getting a lower rate of 1%. For some of us, getting closing costs paid for is dramatic. Like for some of us, we have $5,000 in closing costs. Getting the seller to cover that, for some of us, that can make the rate go up 1% because that's $5,000 that doesn't come out of our account, right? If you zero that out, that can change yield dramatically as well.
And in the market, that's changing. I mean, the seller's starting to pick up more of the closing costs as opposed to 3 months ago. I was calculating for me to pay closing costs.
So, for example, you have your spreadsheet in front of you, right?
I do.
If like, what do you have for a closing cost item? It's like $3,000, $4,000. What do you have?
Well, I was using your numbers. Then I bumped it up to $9,000 closing costs. It's at 10%.
So take one of your properties. For us on this example, what is a yield on one of your properties today?
5%.
So go to that row and make the
Okay.
closing cost 0 instead of $9,000, and just tell us what the change is. It's going to be, I bet you it's a point.
Just not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
No, that's why I said it's about $10,000. I have to go $10,000
lower. Okay, so it's almost. It's if you went to a decimal,
yeah.
it would be
correct.
Yeah, it would be okay. So it's close. But that's the beauty of all this, especially in a slower market where we're going to start encountering more and more and more motivated sellers. You can get very creative with your offers. Lower price, closing cost covered, get a little bit lower rate. You know, all of those things. Yeah. So if you play with all of those, you can really make the yield go up.
That also brings up a worry because I noticed that it could go up on the yield. It could go up or down 1% just by about $125 to $150. So if I don't calculate the monthly rent correctly, and
Absolutely.
I'm off by $125 a month, I mean that takes it from a 6% to 5%, or from 5% to 4%.
Amen.
And then it's like, why am I even buying this house?
Yeah, treasuries look better and better.
Right.
Yeah, you got rent. Yeah, absolutely right. You got to be conservative on rent. You got it.
And a little bit on the overall picture of this. I understand you want me to stick with. I'm going to stick with this market till I get it. But if, for example, like the good that you were talking to Jason, the good is 1.5 and 3% for the great. If my good and great brings me up to the 5 and 6%, then would you think that I'd be thinking about maybe changing markets at that point after I get it all, after I understand it all?
Yes.
Or do you think that that's just my market? I need to invest at 5-6%.
Well, we're gonna get to a point, and it sounds like you'll be there in a couple of weeks, where you're going to have to decide: do I want to invest my market at 6%? And that's a good or great deal. That'll be a personal choice. Some people, like I have a couple that invest in San Diego. Good and great for them is 2 and 3%. But they are adamant that they're only ever investing in San Diego. They want to walk to their properties. This is what they want to do. That's their call. I'm not here to judge. But if you can tell me and you're certain that a great deal in your market 6%, that's up to you. Is 6% good enough? And maybe it's not. I mean, with a 5.5% treasury, maybe it's not. But that'll be a personal choice.
It's a lot of work.
I agree. But again, I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. But that's but you're only making an informed decision.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Senya?
Me again. Sorry, asking a lot of questions today.
You have to. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Okay. To Gabriel's point about the importance of calculating rents correctly, how would you suggest us to estimate the rents?
For the first 2 or 3 weeks, pick whatever app you're comfortable with. Rent-A-Meter, Zillow, just whichever one you are, just default to that. You're fine. As you get farther along, your job is to start networking with more and more people. So you're going to be cross-checking all of this. Don't count on in all of this exercise, you should never rely on one person or one app. But for the first couple of weeks, you're just getting data in. So pick one and move on. You shouldn't get distracted for the first 3 weeks. Get a rent, put it in. A, B, or C for make ready. Closing cost, assume a percentage. You're just trying to collect data and start driving the neighborhoods like Sri was talking about. As you get going, you'll become Gabriel, like, oh, I'm starting to identify things. And, oh, let me poke over here. And why is this? Like, one of the things you'll probably see with Rent-A-Meter is you'll find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. One time it'll be $1,600 and the other time it'll be $2,000. For the first 3 weeks, put whatever number they have. After 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, it's like, how can that be that different? Let me go call a property manager and see, is it because it's part of town? Is it because it's closer to the school? You'll start refining that, but don't overthink the process the first 3 weeks. Take the data, move on. Take the data, move on.
Thanks.
Of course. Sabi.
Salbi.
I missed it.
Almost.
Sorry.
Hey, Mike. I think I might have missed it, but is it 40 to 20 active listings or 40 to 20 total listings?
Active listings.
Active listings. Okay. All right.
Yeah, if your thing had like 51 listings and like 12 of them are pending, I only worried about actives because I want to know what's available today if I wanted to buy, because pendings can come back and all of that, but I only looked at active.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. All right. Any last minute questions as we set up your homework assignment? So again, as I said at the opening, where's my notes? It's Sunday, October 8th, 8 to 10. You will get a Zoom invite later today for our next meeting. So that's roughly 2 weeks from today. What I'm hoping to happen is all of you start filling out your version of your buy box spreadsheet for the next 2 weeks. What I would like to have happen in 2 weeks is all of you, assuming you're comfortable doing it, share your screen and we look at what you're doing. I would like for all of us to see, because what you're going to see is everybody's is different, and that's okay. Some of us are Excel wizards, some of us are not, and that is okay. So that's what I'm hope happenings between today and Sunday, October 8th, is you start building your spreadsheet. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you don't know what you're doing, but every day you do it, it will get more comfortable. The first day you fill out your spreadsheet is the longest it should take you when you're putting in the 27 listings. That will take you some time. Day 2, it's only the changes. Day 3, it's only the changes. So the first time you're building this, it can take you a little bit of time, but it should only be 20 to 30 minutes after you get through the first heavy lifting. Does that make sense? Yes? All right. Any last minute questions about buy box or the homework assignment? Alex, you have oh no, it's a thumbs up. Sorry, that's not a hand raise. Any questions about the homework? This is important. This is where you start, swinging a golf club or learning a language. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But the more you do it, the more you trust, the better it will start feeling. Van Reeth.
So I did have a question. Do you ever, like, after the 90 days or whatever, are you looking at like yields at the second, third year to see if it becomes an alligator? Okay.
No, I don't. And part of that, frankly, is because if you're in Texas, you probably should think about that. I'm in California with Prop 13, kind of a luxury. But for me, it's always about the deal. Once I own the property, it's mine. So I've never had a thought about year 2 and year 3, honestly. Okay. Good question. I've actually never had that question before. All right. Well, this was fun for me. Thank you for being here. Hopefully this put us all on a path. Again, 2 weeks, you're going to be building your spreadsheet. Hopefully you'll be comfortable with sharing your screens and looking at them, because that's where we're going to be in week 3. All right, folks, take care of yourself. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.